Good morning, everyone. With the permission of today's chief guest of this inaugural function, Professor C.S.P. Rao Garu, Director, NIT Andhra Pradesh, I would like to start this session. Honorable Director of NIT Andhra Pradesh, Professor C.S.P. Rao Sir, respected Registrar in Charge, NIT Andhra Pradesh, Dr. P. Dinesh Shankar Reddy Sir, Head, Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Srinivasan Ayothi Raman, colleagues of the Department of Biotechnology, and dear participants. This is Dr. Rajeshwara Reddy Erva, Assistant Professor in Department of Biotechnology, National Institute of Technology, Andhra Pradesh, in the capacity of the coordinator of this 5-day online faculty development program come webinar series on latest trends and future prospects of biotechnology. I welcome you all for the inaugural function of this scientific event. Greetings of the day. First of all, I would like to thank our Director Sir, Professor C.S.P. Rao Garu, for permitting me to conduct this FDP cum webinar series. This is only because of his continuous motivation and constant support we could able to start this program. I also thank all the other administrative officers of NIT Andhra Pradesh for their extended support in the materialization of this event.
It gives me immense pleasure to share with you all that we have received an overwhelming response for this FDP cum webinar series from different parts of the world. A total of 800 registrations were received from various countries like USA, UK, Canada, Iraq, Dubai, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and China, apart from all the states of India. Different categories of people have registered for this event like faculty, scientists, postdoctoral fellows, PhD students, PG and UG students. We have 5 eminent personalities as speakers during these coming 5 days, namely Professor Kannan Paksharajan, Professor, Department of Bioscience and Bioengineering with an expertise in environmental biotechnology from IIT Guwahati, Dr. Satish Babu Rajulapati, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Biotechnology with Modeling and Optimization of Bioprocesses as Research Domain from National Institute of Technology, Warangal, Dr. Indra Chandrasekhar, Assistant Scientist, Sanford Research Center and Assistant Professor, Department of Pediatrics, being Molecular Biology and Research Area of Interest from University of South Dakota, United States of America, Dr. Muralidhara Rao Daulatabad, Associate Professor, Department of Biotechnology and President, Society for Bioengineering and Biotechnology, with the research interests of metabolic engineering from Sri Krishna Devaraya University, Anantapuramu, Andhra Pradesh, and Professor H.S. Chawla, Professor and Head, Department of Genetics and Plant Breeding, with the research domain of plant biotechnology and intellectual property rights from G.P. Pant University of Agriculture and Technology and former Chief Executive Officer of Intellectual Property Management Center, Pantnagar, Uttarakhand, India. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all these speakers for accepting my invitation to deliver the lectures on different thrust areas of biotechnology during this tough time of COVID-19. Now, I request Head Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Srinivasan Ayothi Raman, to share his thoughts on this FDP and webinar series.
Thanks, Raj. I welcome all of the participants, our registrar sir, and our director sir, and the program coordinator Raju Reddy. Everybody, I welcome and warm good morning to every people. For the benefit of the participants, I just want to introduce our department to all of you. The department was established in the year of 2015 with a BTech in biotechnology with an intake of 30 students. Currently, we have 8 faculties in the department, and 4 are regular people, and 4 are ad hoc people, and all are having a PhD degree from IITs and NIT. And regarding the laboratory, we have established some basic laboratory for our BTech students, and we have, we have placed an order for the for the fermenter also, We have basic infrastructures for bioprocess engineering and other researchers also. And our students are, qualifies GATE and GRE for their higher studies, and they are also participated in many national and international conferences to present their works, whatever they carried out here, as well as to project their ideas. And we also invite various scientists and professors from IITs and IACs and IICTs as a guest to deliver their and share their thoughts with our students. And we have also invited few people from industries like Mylan Industry, Biocon, Syngene. Those people also visited our campus, and we have possible, interaction with those people. And also visited, we used to visit the nearby biotechnology industries like Parameswara Industries, and we have one agriculture college, horticulture college over here to motivate the students to visualize like what they have done and what they can able to see in the industry. Those things we are doing it. And regarding the faculty, we have 8 faculty. As I said, we have 4 regular faculties, and those have qualified candidates, and they have received several awards from national and international agencies. And we have a good number of publications by the faculties, Wiley, Springer, and they have contributed different book chapters also. They have contributed in high impact journals also, biochemical engineering, food and function, like that. We have good number of publications also. And regarding research or internship, we have MS by part time. Those who work in industry with a BTech program. So we are welcome those people for our part-time MS program, and we are also offering PhD in full-time and as well as part-time also. And no, I mean those people who works in industry, they can register as a part-time, or even the academia people also welcome to register as a part-time. And for those who are having a MTech degree, they can also join as a full-time PhD also. And we are open for research or any kind of collaborative research. So I congratulate as a department Rajeshwar Reddy for organizing such a workshop. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts. Now, it's my pleasure to request Dr. P. Dinesh Shankar Reddy, sir, Registrar in Charge, NIT Andhra Pradesh, to speak few words about this FDP program.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh Reddy, Dr. Srinivasan. At the outset, I welcome all the participants for this Friday faculty development program on new technologies in biotechnology. Before going into the today's topic, actually, I would like to introduce briefly about NIT Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh is the youngest NIT of all the 31 NITs established in the India. Is the youngest NIT in India, and it has started in the year 2015 with 8 specializations of engineering. So among them, the biotechnology is one of the department with a student intake of 30. As the head biotechnology was speaking about, the biotechnology, though is the youngest, it has a vibrant faculty with varied domains of expertise among them. So initially, I congratulate the Department of Biotechnology for initiating a faculty development program under these circumstances. This coronavirus disease, the COVID-19 pandemic, has presented some significant challenges to the scientific community. However, this has also offered opportunities for pursuit of new scientific activities, and in particular for the field of biotechnology. Being a chemical engineer, I can relate to majority of the issues of biotechnology. So in biotechnology now, many of the researchers, they are now shifting their work into the domain of COVID-19. Of late, the Department of Biotechnology, maybe DST, they are announcing various kinds of projects to support these research activities related to COVID-19. So particularly if you look at the biotechnologies play an important role in terms of like looking at the health aspects or environmental aspects or maybe the food sector. So they are all ventured into various domains. Coming to the COVID-19 scenario, maybe the researchers now can look into the new ideas for discovery in developing vaccines and monoclonal antibodies and screening antiviral compounds such as maybe secondary metabolites and peptides, thereby actively participating in finding solutions to ongoing real-time global human and economic crisis. I hope the biotechnologists have really a strong role in countering this ongoing epidemic. Hope maybe Dr. Rajesh Reddy would be throwing some light on the research areas related to the COVID-19, because I'm not sure like who are the speakers. If not included, I request Rajesh Reddy to include maybe 1 or 2 sessions related to the advanced technologies or the research that is going around COVID-19. Also, another opportunity which the COVID-19 has offered to the academicians is now it has erased the boundaries related to the participants' involvement into the such kind of FDPs. Previously, only the nearby faculty and researchers used to come and then attend physically. Now, being these are all webinars across the world, the participants can register. At the same time, even inviting experts have also become an easier task. Previously, we used to maybe the researchers were not ready to come down to a far remote place. Now we could able to convince them and then invite them for an hour or an hour and a half delivery of lectures. So in one way, it has erased some of the boundaries, wherein we could able to organize these kind of programs more frequently, and also to enlighten the faculty who are working or researchers who are working in the area of biotechnology or other areas of engineering. Yeah, once again, thank the Department of Biotechnology, especially the coordinator, Dr. Rajesh Reddy, and head of the department, Dr. Srinivasan, for taking such an initiative and to organize this FDP. And hope this FDP would be a very good uh, maybe initiative to gain some knowledge related to advanced technologies in biotechnology for all the participants. I wish all the best to the participants as well as to the coordinator. Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, sir, for your words, encouragement, and support towards this program. Now, I request Dr. T. Jaganmohan Rao, Assistant Professor, Department of Biotechnology, to propose vote of thanks for this inaugural session.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. T. Jagan Mohan Rao, Assistant Professor, Department of Biotechnology, NIT Andhra Pradesh. I'm delighted to deliver the vote of thanks, and I'm extremely thankful to our Honorable Director, Professor C.S.P. Rao Garu, Registrar in charge, Dr. P. Dinesh Shankar Reddy, for extending their support and valuable time in organizing this FTP program. I would like to thank our head Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Srinivasan, and Dr. Rajeshwar Reddy, Assistant Professor, Department of Biotechnology, and other teaching and non-teaching staff who are involved in this FTP program. I extend my heartful thanks to our eminent speakers who are going to enlighten us with their knowledge in their respective domains. And not but not the least, I'm thankful to all the selected participants who are going to attend this FDP program, and I hope that everybody will be benefited from this ongoing FDP program. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everyone. One thing I missed is I must thank Weber Network team of NIT who have extended their support for this online FTP program. Thank you, everyone. We will meet in the technical session, which will start within half an hour. Dear participants, welcome back to the first technical session of this 5-day online faculty development program cum webinar series on latest trends and future prospects of biotechnology. Today, we have a wonderful speaker for this session, that is Professor Kannan Paksharajan, Professor in the Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, to speak on recent trends in biohydrogen production. Professor Kannan Paksharajan specializes on biological removal and recovery of metals and non-metals from waste. Sir's research interests are xenobiotic biodegradation, cleaner production of biosurfactants, biofuels and biopolymers, and biorefinery. Sir has received PhD in chemical engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. Professor Pakshirajan is a recipient of many awards and honors. These include, besides others, Indian National Science Academy Award for Young Scientist, National Academy of Sciences India Young Scientist Award, Hiyoshi Young Leaf Award Japan, Top Reviewer Award Bioresource Technology Elsewhere publications being few of them. Professor Pakshirajan has completed 5 major research projects as the principal investigator worth of 1 crore rupees and is currently the principal investigator of 4 more projects sponsored by various funding agencies with a worth of 1.5 crore rupees. Professor Rajan has published over 140 research papers in peer-reviewed international journals and 8 book chapters. Sir is also a co-editor of the book Platform Chemical Biorefinery, Future Green Industry, published by Elsevier in the year 2016. Professor Rajan has guided 13 PhD students and many master's students and trained several postdoctoral researchers thus far. Sir is an active life member of renowned professional societies, which include Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers, Association of Microbiologists India, and Biotechnology Research Consortium of India, etc. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our request, and it is our honor to have you with us to share your treasure of knowledge with all the participants of this FDP cum webinar series. Now, I humbly request you to start your lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for your wonderful introduction. I'm much delighted for the kind introduction. I'm going to now share the presentation slides with all of you. Yes. A very good morning to all of you. I first of all thank Dr. Reddy for organizing this webinar on latest trends in biotechnology and for inviting me to give the presentation on this topic. So, which is very close to my heart. And so this is one of the main research that we are currently pursuing at IIT Guwahati. And this is on biohydrogen production from gaseous substrate. So as the title indicates of this webinar series, I'm bringing with me some discussion on environmental biotechnology aspects. So which is currently the major focus everywhere, in addition to the energy, which these two are playing a very vital role in the entire global scenario. And I thought I will share with you some of the recent trends on this topic of biohydrogen, which is poised to be implemented in the year 2050, replacing all the fossil fuel sources as the energy. This is the main campus, which is actually very scenic. As you can see, IIT Guwahati is located in the northeast of the country, and it is the seventh IIT which has been formed by the MHRD, next to IIT Madras, Delhi, Bombay, Kanpur, and Kharagpur. In my talk, I will focus on the microbiology of biohydrogen production. Then I will move on to the various biohydrogen production processes and the different pathways that microorganisms, including algae, cyanobacteria, anaerobic bacteria, carry out the biohydrogen production. And also because I focus on mostly the bioprocess kinetics, bioprocess reactors for carrying out the production, and also for wastewater treatment and waste gas treatment. So I will give an overview of reactor considerations, particularly focusing on biohydrogen technology, and what are the main barriers of biohydrogen production. And I will be able to present some key research findings that we could able to gather from this topic, and finally some recommendations for future research. So we all know that how the energy source has been changing over centuries since mankind has evolved. Initially, it was the biomass which was used for burning purpose, and we all know that burning of biomass doesn't yield good calorific value. And that is where we have to transform into some energy rich product, which could be in the form of some fuels like ethanol, biodiesel, or hydrogen. Or it could be in the form of some other like natural gas or hydrogen and so on. So you can see how the human civilization has come up with different energy sources. And so far, we attribute petroleum and coal and natural gas as the fossil fuel sources. And as they are quickly depleting, so there is a need for going towards more greener sources of energy. I mean, a green source of energy is because when you burn these fossil fuel sources, then they emit a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, including carbon dioxide, methane, which everybody knows, and cause climate change. And that is one of the reasons why we are going to more greener source of energy, which we call it as biohydrogen or bioethanol, biodiesel, because they contain a high amount of oxygen content and therefore they completely burn fully without emitting any pollutants into the atmosphere. And particularly, hydrogen is regarded as a clean fuel because other than hydrogen, there is no other uh, molecule or element present, and therefore it burns completely without emitting any pollutants into the atmosphere, unlike even ethanol or biodiesel. So they emit some amount of carbon dioxide, whereas hydrogen, it doesn't evolve any carbon dioxide or even any other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And finally, we're thinking about hydrogen as an nth generation biofuel or fuel because mostly it is research which is going on, and there is not many large scale applications of hydrogen except for fuel cells that have been come up recently in developed countries like Japan and Europe. But of course, now countries like UK and some other places, so they are coming up with full scale buses which are fueled by hydrogen-based fuel cells. So the future of hydrogen is going to be certainly there. Maybe we will have to put more efforts towards research and coming up with a lot of processes by which we can be scaled up beyond simple laboratory or small scale so that it can be reached a commercially. As I mentioned, hydrogen is poised to become a clean energy choice of electricity or primary energy carrier, and therefore it is regarded as a sustainable energy source. And it can be used in not only for large scale applications like running automobiles or for any transportation, but can also be used for small scale electricity, lighting, and others. And if you look at hydrogen, it burns very efficiently and it gives a very high energy equivalent of about 42 gigajoules with respect to 1 ton of the oil, which is with the fossil fuel. But in case of hydrogen, it gives 143 gigajoules, so which is more than 3-4 times higher than we get from fossil fuel source, and that's why it is considered as an nth generation fuel, and it is considered to be a superior biofuel is compared with bioethanol, biobutanol, or of course there are other disadvantages which I will try to speak, considering the barriers of hydrogen as a fuel for energy purpose. When I mention hydrogen applications, it is not only useful for industrial activities, but it can also be used for many agricultural activities, small communities, decentralized systems, and waste processing facilities. This is mostly attractive because hydrogen can utilize any raw material ranging from waste biomass and also some soluble substrates, which can be in the form of gaseous substrates or even liquid substrates and so on. If you look at the microbiology of biohydrogen production, there are two main reasons why hydrogen is produced by microorganisms, and it is mainly to dispose of the excess reducing equivalents. When I say reducing equivalents, these are in the form of NADH, which drives any redox reactions in a biochemical pathway, including TCA cycle or glycolytic cycle and so on. And certain organisms like cyanobacteria also evolve hydrogen when they fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. So depending upon the type of organism that we consider, whether they are anaerobic organisms or whether they are photosynthetic organisms, so the hydrogen is an inevitable product of microbial metabolism, particularly depending upon the reducing equivalents of or recycled or produced or nitrogen fixation happens or happens. So we can broadly classify the microorganisms as either heterotrophs, which utilize organic substrates. And as you can see in this particular reaction, the acetic acid is getting converted to this glucose is getting converted to acetic acid, and we get hydrogen as a byproduct. So in this case, 4 moles of hydrogen can be produced from 1 mole of glucose with 2 moles of acetic acid as a main product by heterotrophs. And there are organisms which can also produce butyric acid, and in that case, there is only 2 moles of hydrogen that can be produced. And not only soluble substrates like glucose can be used, we can also use gaseous substrates, carbon monoxide, which is very, very important from the point of water gas shift reaction. And that is where our research is currently focused on. And this gives a high amount of hydrogen, where 1 mole of carbon monoxide can give rise to 1 mole of hydrogen and 1 mole of carbon dioxide. And this reaction is essentially called the water gas shift reaction. And this has got excellent potential for hydrogen production in the current scenario. And as compared with heterotrophs, photosynthetic organisms also utilizes glucose in the presence of light, and it can produce more amount of hydrogen. That means the yield is very high. It produces 12 moles of hydrogen as compared to 24 moles of hydrogen by anaerobic reactions. Some organisms like green algae or cyanobacteria can also split water, which we generally call it as photosynthesis, where oxygen is produced, and it can also evolve hydrogen. But essentially, I'm not going into the detailed biochemical cycle, and it is essentially for using the reducing equivalents NADH, which gets converted to NAD plus, and in the process, the hydrogen ions combine together and fuse with electrons to produce hydrogen. And this is the simple microbiology which is well established in the literature. So I will try to put in a single slide what are the different pathways that are followed by these microorganisms. For example, if this photofermentation in presence of light, the carbon source like glucose is used up, as I showed in the previous slide, the reaction that is mainly involved. But the main advantage of this is high yield. As I showed in the previous slide, algae can produce 12 moles of hydrogen from by splitting of water, but the productivity is very less. What I mean by productivity, the amount of time that it takes to produce hydrogen is a little bit prolonged as compared with heterotrophic organisms. So where anaerobic organisms play a very, very important role. So we get a lot of value-added products like acids, including acetic acid, butyric acid, and alcohols. And we get hydrogen as a byproduct, and that is why the yield is low, but the productivity is higher as compared with the photosynthetic organisms. And this is in a nutshell how we can try to exploit the microorganisms for our own biohydrogen. So this slide is trying to compare what are the advantages and how much is the yield of various microbial routes for hydrogen production. So in case of direct biophotolysis, where hydrogen is produced from water in the presence of sunlight, that is exactly water splitting reaction, and it gives tenfold higher solar conversion efficiency as compared with terrestrial crops. I mean plants and other land crops. But whereas your organisms like algae, microalgae can produce very high amount of hydrogen. And typical example of direct biophotolysis is Chlamydomonas reinhardtii. And other thing is indirect biophotolysis, which also involves the presence of sunlight. And in this case, they are nitrogen fixers, for example, cyanobacteria. And nitrogenase enzyme is the key enzyme which is involved in the hydrogen production. The best example is Anabaena variabilis. And the photofermentation is where these photosynthetic organisms use organic compounds like even glucose or any other carbon source, which can be even from carbonaceous oxygen demand or BOD that are present in a waste stream like that. These use light energy in order to convert the organic sources for producing this hydrogen. The best example is Odobacter. If you look at the dark fermentation, where the main products are not, where the main product is not hydrogen, but rather acids like citric acid, lactic acid, or acetic acid, or even alcohol. And the one good important advantage of these dark fermentation is they do not rely only on glucose, but they can rely on any other complex hydrocarbons or other organic carbon sources. And another important thing is they are not sensitive to hydrogen, sorry, they're not sensitive to oxygen, which is in case of the photosynthetic organisms for hydrogen production. Examples can be Clostridium species, which is very well known as an anaerobic organism for producing hydrogen from organic carbon sources, or Enterobacter species. We can also employ a two-stage fermentation process where the first stage will involve dark fermentation, where acetate and hydrogen are produced under dark fermentation. This acetate can also be converted in a separate stage involving photo fermentation, where the acetate is converted to your hydrogen by organisms like animal. And if you look at the main source of hydrogen, which is produced commercially, it is nothing but water gas shift reaction, whereby carbon monoxide is combined with water to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen. So this is the reaction. But this involves a high temperature, high pressure conditions, and also transition metal catalysts like copper or zinc. Whereas this reaction can also be carried out by biological organisms, especially the anaerobic organisms. And if you look at the thermodynamic feasibility in terms of the Gibbs free energy, it is very high, minus 20 kilojoules per mole. And this reaction, if they are carried out under anaerobic conditions by biomass, then we call it as water gas shift reaction or biological water gas shift reaction. And this is mainly carried out by anaerobic microbial consortia. And the yield is also a little bit on a higher side than we use it. I will quickly discuss about the biohydrogen production pathways that are followed. I mean, the main route or the enzymes that are involved in converting substrates like glucose or butyrate or acetate to hydrogen. So, as I mentioned, this is the main mode of biochemical decomposition of glucose by photosynthetic and anaerobic bacteria, which can be involved like formate as the simple acid that is produced, or acetate as an important intermediate, or butyrate as an important intermediate that are produced. So, depending upon the intermediate, whether formate, acetate, or butyrate, so that could be hydrogen produced, but the number of moles of hydrogen produced can vary. For example, if from glucose formate is produced, then we get like a higher amount of hydrogen, which is 4 moles of hydrogen. And if there is acetate is produced, then also it produces 4 moles. But when butyrate is produced, it produces 2 moles of hydrogen. And essentially, there are other like ferredoxin and other cofactors like nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which are involved. So during this oxidation reduction process, your hydrogen is produced, and the main enzymes that are involved are hydrogenases and nitrogenases by cyanobacteria. But essentially, hydrogenases are mainly involved if dark fermentation is followed. In case of photolysis of water, which is essentially photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, the main enzyme that is involved is hydrogenase and again nitrogenase. And again, we get to involve the reducing factors like peridoxin or NADH, which are involved in the process. And this is quite well established from the point of photosynthesis for producing hydrogen. And hydrogen is an important intermediate in the photosynthetic reaction, which we can exploit for our purpose. In some cyanobacteria, or mostly in cyanobacteria, they consist of 2 different kinds of cells. One is the heterocyst, and the other one is the non-heterocyst. So here also, in the heterocyst, it mainly involves the nitrogenase enzyme, which produces hydrogen. And in case of non-heterocystous cells, they can involve either nitrogenase or hydrogenase. And in both these cases, hydrogen can be evolved by simple splitting of water, and that this is considered much cheaper, as we are not going to give any organic carbon source. With only sunlight and water, we can get hydrogen. But as I mentioned before, although the yield is higher, the productivity is very low. That means it takes a lot amount of time, and we need to be concerned with availability of sunlight. So the surface area and other engineering aspects have to be improved in order to gain to gain a better process efficiency using such photosynthetic organisms. And of course, this is not limited to only wild organisms, but we can also get many recombinant organisms which have been like in the research for producing hydrogen, and this involves suppression of certain enzymes that can lead to other products like succinic acid, but rather like mainly driving the pathway towards producing the pyruvic acid. And since pyruvic acid is an important intermediate that can lead to the formation of lactate, acetate, and ethanol, so blocking the conversion of pyruvate to lactate is considered as very productive for recombinant approach, and we can either divert it to formate or acetic acid, whereby hydrogen can be produced, as I showed in another slide. So these are generally the four metabolic pathways which are essentially going to be involved in our hydrogen production. Now, how do you scale up the process is the biggest challenge, because we can do a lot of research in small scale with shake flask or test tubes, but when you want to scale up the process, the reactor considerations is of paramount importance. You will find in the literature that mostly there are 3 or 4 different types of reactors that have been commonly employed for biohydrogen production, and so the CSTR, which we are very much familiar, and it is also called as the mixed flow reactor, which consists of simple uh, feed, and there is also an outlet stream for both gas as well as liquid. And in this gas outlet, we may get the hydrogen tapped for our own storage purpose. And the main important consideration for this reactor is the stirrer, which drives the mass transfer of the nutrients and all other substrates, and also for the uh, collection of your gases, particularly the hydrogen and the biogas that are evolved during the conversion process. This is more successfully applied for converting food waste, which contains organic substrates, by even by bacteria which are present in sewage, and it can give a very high yield. And we can also use certain wastewater from potato processing industry. So these have been very well established. The main advantages of this is we can have a good control of parameters, including temperature, agitation, and nutrient transfer and others. And it was simple construction, but on the other hand, it could lead to lower conversion per unit volume, and the steering is an additional cost which can be minimized by using other types of reactors. One of the most successful anaerobic reactors so far, developed by uh, more than some 2 decades, is the USB reactor, which we call it as the upflow anaerobic sludge blanket reactor. And this is one of the most successful reactor for anaerobic conversion. And this is still used in many places in India also. And this is mainly used for methane production from organic waste containing feed. The main important design considerations are that it consists of a sludge which is settled at the bottom, and mainly we have the biomass in the form of granular size, which are highly packed and highly dense biomass. And because of the high bacterial density, so that is the conversion efficiency is very high, and they can also withstand very high organic loading rate, and the energy requirement is also very low, as there is no mechanical agitation or mechanical moving parts, and the segregation of the different parts of the contents in the reactor is also very nicely uh, visible or possible here. And we have a gas collection dome from which we can easily try to capture the hydrogen or the methane from this particular state. And this is successfully stored for rice winery wastewater and different kinds of waste. We can also try to maintain the hydraulic conditions. It is a little bit difficult, but with proper granular formation of the anaerobic biomass, so this is possible to a major extent. You can use a simple packed bed reactor that has got a very less complicated design as compared with CSTR, or our upflow anaerobic sludge blanket reactor. And moreover, it is having a very simple design in terms of the fixed bed in which bacteria are immobilized, and we have a feed from the bottom, and we can try to collect the gas as well as the liquid coming from the top. But the control of the temperature and other conditions may be difficult. Maybe difficult. Moreover, channeling may occur when there is excess flow velocity of your inlet feed into the reactor, and this has been successfully shown for different kinds of organic waste containing material as a feed for hydrogen production. If you look at your fluidized bed reactor, the hydrodynamics are much better as compared with your packed bed reactor or even up to anaerobic sludge blanket reactor. And these also do not have any moving parts or mechanical agitation, and therefore the energy consumption is slightly lower as compared with CSTR, but certainly better than packed bed, as we are going to inlet air with a high velocity for fluidizing the support materials inside the reactor. The one good thing is actually, so we can have a better mass transfer, so the conversion efficiency and the conversion rate is much higher as compared with other kinds of reactor, and this has also been shown to be very important. But the scaling up may be difficult as we need a higher velocity of air and pumping of your liquid in order to maintain the fluidization effect inside the reactor. But as compared with other conventional reactors, this reactor has shown to be very much effective for better conversion efficiency and better rate of reactions. Whatever we have shown in we have seen in the previous slides are mostly for soluble substrates, but we can also use gaseous substrates, like for example, even ethanol can also be a gaseous substrate, and carbon monoxide is a very good substrate for hydrogen conversion by biological organisms. And for this type of gaseous substrates, one of the ideal reactor is airlift reactor or a gas lift reactor. So in this case, we do not give air because we generally use anaerobic microorganisms. So it is generally called as GLR or gas lift reactor. The important feature of this reactor is that it doesn't have any moving parts or no mechanical agitation. And because of the flow pattern, where the liquid is pumped from bottom of the reactor and it rises into this inner tube, and because the gas escapes at the top, it becomes more denser and therefore it falls back at the bottom of the reactor. So this recirculation pattern follows over the continuous operation, giving better mass transfer efficiency and better mixing efficiency, and also the escape of gases is also facilitated by this reactor designs, and this has been successfully shown for anaerobic organisms. So we also conducted several studies on carbon monoxide fed gas lift reactor for hydrogen production, which I will be able to share later at a later point of time. Of course, photobioreactors are very well known for cultivating photosynthetic organisms. So, whatever the previous reactors we have seen are mostly suited for dark fermentation or anaerobic bacterial culture. But for cyanobacteria and algae, since they require sunlight or any artificial light, so the reactor has to facilitate the availability of this light source. So, the main important consideration is availability of more surface area for the microbial culture, and we can have either engineered design or simple open pond designs like raceway ponds like that. But we can also go for tubular designs, which are gaining more popularity as compared with CSTR type of reactors. I'm not going into the details. You can find all these details in this excellent review by Das Gupta about 2010 paper, where all these reactor designs can be found here. Now, the important point to ponder is, of course, there are many good things about biohydrogen production, but there are several drawbacks which is so far limiting its commercial exploitations. For example, as I mentioned earlier, the anaerobic bacteria is considered to be a very good source of biohydrogen production, but the yield of biohydrogen from anaerobic bacteria is only 4 moles. So in this scenario, we need to screen more novel and efficient microorganisms, and we can also perform some genetic manipulation to increase the yield beyond 4 moles for whatever glucose or organic carbon that you are going to use. And the main enzyme is also a bottleneck because this hydrogenase is highly sensitive to oxygen, especially in anaerobic organisms, or not in anaerobic organisms, but in photosynthetic organisms. But in anaerobic organisms, they are subjected to feedback inhibition by hydrogen, which we call it as product inhibition. So when you have an excess of hydrogen, these hydrogenases do not work efficiently. So can we overcome the drawbacks of oxygen sensitivity in photosynthetic organisms and the product inhibition due to hydrogen in anaerobic organisms? So therefore, we can increase the activity of these enzymes without any product inhibition or oxygen inhibition for improving the hydrogen production. So these are mostly with respect to microbiological perspective and with respect to biochemistry perspective. Other than this, we can also look for cheaper sources of substrates, like, for example, wastewater, which are rich in organics. And we can also use some renewable biomass, or we can try to use co-digestion, like we generally use for ethanol production from biomass. We can simply adopt to hydrogen, but this is very less studied for biohydrogen production. And on the other hand, we need to find an industrially more robust strain which can withstand harsh temperature or harsh pressure conditions or other environmental conditions that can convert hydrogen from cheaper organic carbon sources. Now, with respect to your process, so there are main two important challenges. For example, the product yield I mentioned before, and also utilization, because we do not want the organic substrate which we use to be incompletely utilized. So we want complete utilization of the organic that we use for hydrogen production, and at the same time increase the yield. So we have twin objectives of both utilization as well as improving the yield here. And most importantly, the reactor consideration is of paramount importance whenever we want to scale it up beyond laboratory or pilot scale. So we need to understand the kinetics and also like improving the mass transfer conditions for proper harvesting of the hydrogen that is produced and for efficient conversion of your hydrogen. And so this aligns with the previous whatever microbial pathways and bioreactor considerations that we have seen in the previous slides. If you look at the thermodynamics, the main redox factor or the reducing agent that is involved in hydrogen production is the NADPH. So we can try to find out many other better pathways for converting hydrogen or getting hydrogen from different redox carriers. And another important downstream part of your hydrogen production is that we all know that hydrogen is not a very safe gas, so it is highly explosive, and therefore we need. That's why if you look at a hydrogen cylinder, it comes in red color. So that means we have to be very careful, and we cannot simply keep hydrogen cylinder in any enclosed room, and it has to be kept outside a facility where it is open to the environment, so that even if it explodes, so there is no damage happening to the building or any other living. Now I will spend my time or discussing with you about this ongoing research that has been widely published in the literature, and also some of my own laboratory research that we have been carrying out at IIT Guwahati on this biohydrogen. One of the main routes to biohydrogen is by using gaseous substrates, as it seems to be highly feasible as compared with using liquid substrates, because your carbon monoxide or syngas, which is produced from biomass, is gaining much of importance, as syngas is a starting material for many different fuels, including ethanol and other chemical products. So the CO-rich syngas is seen to be a very good substrate or starting material for hydrogen production. And of course, this is the major commercial route of hydrogen production for producing chemically synthesized hydrogen, which involves carbon monoxide and water to produce CO2 plus hydrogen. But now the chemical route is going to be involving very high energy in terms of temperature and pressure conditions and transition metal catalysts. So we can rather use biological organisms, particularly anaerobic bacteria, whereby we can feed the bacteria with carbon monoxide rich gas and try to evolve hydrogen at the end of the process. So the syngas can be produced not only from renewable biomass like your plant biomass or organic BOD like that, but it can also be produced from coal or any carbon-rich compound, and which gives rise to carbon monoxide, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide, which is called as water gas. And when you remove carbon dioxide, then it is going to be rich in CO and H2, which is called as synthesis gas. So the synthesis gas is refined in order to make it richer in hydrogen, and then carbon dioxide is produced. But the main product is hydrogen, which gives a lot of scope for us to like exploit the hydrogen as a fuel. And in this particular conversion, we are using microorganisms, and the main enzyme that is involved here is carbon monoxide dehydrogenase. Here, as compared with your hydrogenase or only nitrogenase, which are involved in your converting from glucose. So the conversion of carbon monoxide is mainly going to involve carbon monoxide dehydrogenase enzyme, and this is present in the bacteria. And also we have involvement of hydrogenase also in the process where hydrogen can be produced. If you compare it with conventional catalytic water gas shift reaction, catalytic water gas shift reaction is actually thermochemical conversion route, which involves temperature to the extent of 350 to 370, where we remove by subsequent staging. For example, a reforming unit is there, and we have high temperature treatment, then low temperature treatment. So where subsequently CO is removed and hydrogen is enriched at the end of the process. And this is the major route of industrial production of hydrogen. And of course, as with any chemical reaction kinetics, this is very, very fast, even at elevated, because of elevated temperatures. And you also get a very rich product yield. And the drawback is because it comes with a high operating cost, mainly because of high pressure and temperature conditions. And moreover, it involves chemical catalyst, and that's why we are going for a biological route in order to replace this chemical route. We know we know our several literatures has been published on microorganisms that are involved in this biological water gas shift reaction, and this can be an alternative to the conventional water gas shift reaction. And the main enzyme that is involved here is the carbon monoxide dehydrogenase, which takes up carbon monoxide as the only substrate for converting to hydrogen. Hydrogenase is also involved and acts in tandem with the carbon monoxide dehydrogenase. In fact, the conversion of CO to hydrogen here is not only by carbon monoxide dehydrogenase but also by hydrogenase. The hydrogenase produces the hydrogen by combining protons with electrons to produce the hydrogen, whereas the carbon monoxide is involved in converting into protons and carbon dioxide. So this is actually a two-step reaction taking place during the conversion of carbon monoxide to hydrogen. So first, we have done batch studies for estimating or the kinetic parameters and for evaluating the conversion efficiency of carbon monoxide and the production of hydrogen. So we used serum bottles, and we flushed it with pure carbon monoxide as well as synthesis gas containing a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. And then we analyzed not only hydrogen but also volatile fatty acids, volatile suspended solids, and other methane-like gases, and so on. So first we performed experiments in a batch system. As biomass plays a very vital role, we first did a screening of different biomass from various sources. We collected sources like anaerobic sludge biomass from a large-scale treatment plant, which involved anaerobic sludge blanket reactor from Mangalore and Bangalore, places where they treat common effluents from industries and also from municipality conditions. We also use it from local treatment plant from our IT Guwahati itself, and also from a lab scale reactor treating sulfate-rich wastewater. As you can see, depending upon the biomass, the CO conversion varies. And the best conversion of CO was observed with a granular sludge biomass taken from a large-scale treatment plant, which involved the upflow anaerobic sludge blanket reactor. And we analyzed the headspace gas composition. So the entire CO conversion took place mostly within some 5 to 6 days. As you can see, at the initial CO was higher, and as CO was converted, we get hydrogen and methane. And as more CO is converted, we get a richer product, hydrogen, along with some methane. So we know that compared with hydrogen, methane is also a very good biogas, but the energy efficiency is at least 2 to 3 times lower. So getting methane as a energy rich product is not very much advantageous as compared to getting hydrogen. So that's why we wanted to block these hydrogen and this methane production by using some inhibitors during the process. So we studied at different concentrations of carbon monoxide in the synthesis gas. So in order to understand whether the biomass is capable of withstanding the toxic effect, because we all know that CO is not a very safe gas. Even as compared with CO2, CO is known as a toxic gas. So CO is even toxic to organisms. But because of the biomass capability, the CO can be uh, detoxified and can lead to hydrogen production. So we could see that the organism is capable of tolerating very high concentrations of CO and survive well and also producing hydrogen. In order to reduce the methane production in the headspace or the biogas, so we use an inhibitor which inhibits the methanogens. Here, the main organisms that are involved are acetogens because hydrogen is produced along with acetate and the methanogens act on acetate as well as your hydrogen in order to produce methane. So, but because we do not want methane as a product and we want only hydrogen to be produced, so we inhibited the methanogens in the culture by adding some chemical agent which we call it as bromoethane sulfonate. So this graph shows that in absence of inhibitor and this shows in presence of inhibitor where we get a product rich in hydrogen, whereas in this case, hydrogen production was lower. And in this case, methane production was substantially high in the absence, whereas in the presence of inhibitor, the methane production was completely reduced. So this showed that if you inhibit methanogens in the biomass, which is a mixed culture, we can enrich the biogas to a greater extent with biohydrogen. So like in any other bioprocess, we wanted to study the inhibitory concentration and the tolerance of the biomass with respect to CO conversion, and we estimated by fitting it to some known models like Haldane and competitive inhibition. So the major finding from this biomagnetic modeling was that they could able to this organism could able to withstand even higher concentrations of carbon monoxide for improving the biohydrogen yield. Like bioprocess is influenced by many different parameters, including temperature, initial CO, and the biomass type. So we tested different parameters by using Taguchi experimental design, and we found that the organism works best at a slightly elevated temperature of 45 degrees and even at a moderate CO concentration of 90 kilopascals. So it could able to give a maximum CO conversion and a higher hydrogen. And with respect to the biomass, so we found that the raw biomass itself is highly capable of producing. Why we did heat treatment or autoclave was that we wanted to inhibit the methane which was like methanogens which was present in the organism, and that's why this inhibitor we added to inhibit the methanogens present in the biomass. So we also did an optimization by using the response surface methodology in order to increase the hydrogen production by also considering addition of ferrous and nickel, as we know that hydrogenase enzyme it can be both iron containing enzyme or a dual metal containing enzyme, for example, iron as well as nickel. So if you supplement the media with iron or nickel, we wanted to see whether the hydrogenase enzyme activity can be enhanced. So this showed that by formal optimization and screening, we could able to improve the biohydrogen from carbon monoxide. So these are the major findings from this batch study on carbon monoxide conversion to hydrogen. So the anaerobic biomass can be very well used for maximum CO conversion with higher production of hydrogen. And we found out that the CO conversion to hydrogen is mainly involving acetogenic route. And if you try to inhibit this methane, we can get a better yield of hydrogen. And by proper optimization and screening of parameters like temperature, carbon monoxide, and inoculum size, we can further improve the yield. In order to improve the solubility of CO, so we know that CO is a gaseous substrate. So unlike soluble substrates like glucose or lactose, which are used by you or lactic acid by your anaerobic organisms, so the solubility of CO is highly limited because it is a gaseous substrate, and this can be one of the limiting factor for hydrogen production. And if you compare carbon dioxide versus carbon monoxide, the carbon monoxide solubility is very low. So the next objective of improving the the hydrogen production was to improve the CO bioavailability from the feed gas stream. So we used iron nanoparticles by using biologically agents like green tea extract, and we did a lot of characterization, including SEM and TEM analysis, and also functional group analysis by FTIR and so on. So we found that the maximum enhancement could be up to 56%, so which could be possible by addition of this green tea synthesized iron nanoparticles. And because it also contained iron in the nanoparticles, so we don't need to add extra iron for improving the hydrogenase activity. So we could able to find a better productivity of hydrogen by this organism. By using this hydrogen, we also used it for sulfate reduction. That sulfate is present in wastewater. So these are some of the salient results. I'm not going into the details, as you may be familiar with the SEM images, TEM images, and the FTR images, which showed that the nanoparticles contained desired functional groups and also desired characteristics for use in a biological system like this. But this graph is very important, where you can see that with an increasing concentration up to 1000 milligram per liter of these nanoparticles, so the enhancement in CO conversion and hydrogen efficiency was well demonstrated due to this addition of nanoparticles. Then we also did molecular studies, because in any process which involves biological systems, we also need to understand what are the different consortia, or what are the microorganisms that are present in the culture. So we did a metagenomic DNA isolation of the culture that are present in this biomass, anaerobic biomass, and we did the PCR amplification, and we found that by V3 region of the 16S rRNA analysis, and we found that there could be like 150 different families of different phylum or phyla of bacteria that could be identified, but most of it belongs to the bacteria rather than to the archaea type of bacteria. So this pie chart demonstrates that we showed that mostly it consisted of bacillus, and also of Sporolactobacillus and Rubinococcus, and mostly belonging to the genera Proteobacteria. So this gave a very nice insight into how we can try to engineer the predominant or organism that could be responsible for carbon monoxide conversion for improving the hydrogen production. And that is the next step that we are currently doing in our laboratory. And we have also done a lot of reactor studies. For example, as I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, so we use a gas lift reactor, a laboratory scale. This is a 4-liter reactor where the anaerobic biomass is used inside the reactor, and we feed the carbon monoxide or synthesis gas containing stream in an upflow mode fashion, and we try to collect the biogas containing hydrogen and do the analysis. And we also use this hydrogen produced for sulfate reduction for heavy metal removal, and not only for energy, but it can also be used for many different applications. I'm not going to discuss the results, like, because due to paucity of time, as we have already tried to wind up the time by 12 o'clock. In this reactor, we studied the effect of different parameters, including hydraulic retention time, inlet CO conditions, and what are the different flow rates of your gas flow rate conditions in the reactor, and so on. And we could able to achieve very good production of hydrogen. And this reactor we could run continuously for more than 3 months at a stretch without any break in between. So all these results were very much promising, and we are trying to publish this data very soon. So my recommendations based on whatever discussions I could able to make with you today are that the vision of hydrogen fuel is certainly a sustainable and a renewable energy, and of course by 2050, so we can see that there will be different hydrogen powered fuel cells which are going to run even large scale transport vehicles for as an energy source. And but for hydrogen to be renewable, it should come from a renewable source, and biohydrogen production is uh, is definitely an ideal means for realizing this particular biohydrogen or hydrogen applications. And biohydrogen from CO or synthesis gas has a great potential, as we don't need to be bothered with the substrates like glucose, which are more expensive as compared with cheaper ones like carbon monoxide or synthesis gas. And mesophilic organisms, which can convert at ambient temperature and pressure conditions, are more attractive, as we don't need to operate the CO converting process at a higher temperature, as they involve high energy. demand and other conditions. However, extensive research and development efforts are required for commercialization, not only at the microbiology level, but also at the bioreactor level, and for storage of hydrogen and how to harness the hydrogen produced for other processes, not only for energy conversion or energy purpose, but also for sulfur detection, heavy metal removal, and other process, as I mentioned in the previous slides on barriers to hydrogen production. These are some of the references and publications that we could able to successfully produce from this biohydrogen topic in our laboratory. Thank you once again to Dr. Rajeshwar Reddy for this opportunity. I am highly indebted to my colleague, especially Professor Pogalendi, who is from Chemical Engineering Department, for his help. He is a membrane specialist and also helps us in a lot of biomass separation and saturation techniques. And the molecular methods that we perform were with Bose Institute. My collaborator is Professor Tapan Datta. And Arindam Sinarai did his PhD on this topic, and now he's in National University, Galway. And Jayabharata Mall was again a MTech student who did on this topic. So this research, we have been doing it for nearly about 7-8 years in our research at IIT Guwahati. And Arul Manikandan is again PhD scholar working on a different topic on biopolymer, but he earlier worked as a project staff in this particular topic. So this entire research was funded by DBT, Department of Biotechnology, under two different sponsored projects. One was sponsored as early as 2013, another one 2015. So we will be winding up this project with a bioreactor, bioreactor operations for biohydrogen and the genetically modified organisms for enhancing the conversion of CO and biohydrogen. So with this, I would like to thank you once again for your attention. I look forward to your interaction. Yeah, thanks. So, Dr. Reddy, you take over? Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, dear participants, it is the time to thank our resource person for today, Professor Kannan Paksharajan sir, for delivering such an excellent session on recent trends in biohydrogen production. Thank you, sir, for being part of this FDP webinar series. On behalf of all the participants, in the capacity of the coordinator of this FDP, I thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for enlightening the participants with your profound knowledge in the field of environmental biotechnology. We are indeed blessed to have got the opportunity to listen to you today, sir. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.